Big trains. I am not fond of big trains based on my experience. Over the past few months, I have been on more big trains than I have ever been on in my entire life. Okay, so in my personal belief, a big train is a very long train that takes you to far away places, right? It's a long train journey, stops not very often. Um, that's sort of my definition of what a big train means to me. Regular trains, I love them. I do love a good regular train, but based on my experiences over the past few months, I don't like big trains. So before 2023, I don't think I'd ever been on a big train, or not that I can remember, because a lot of the time I will be using a car to get very far places, because it's just so much easier to do that. However, in Norway, when I was in Norway about 2 months ago, I got a big train from Oslo to Trondheim, basically just because I was going with my family and couldn't be bothered to get a car because it's, quite expensive and just, driving is stressful. So we thought, it'd be nice to get a big train all the way there. That experience was absolutely lovely. That first big train experience, I think it was about 7 hours, maybe more. 7 hours, I'm going to say. That was lovely. That was a great experience. I enjoyed that a whole lot. The next big train experience was not so great. So a few weeks ago, I was going to Glasgow, right? I was going to go to Glasgow to help my dad with something and also film the Glasgow subway video. The problem was that I was going to do this in the Easter break, right? The problem was that I had a, Easter school that I needed to go in for. So it's like revision for my A-level exams that I've got in a few months. And I needed to go in for that. I couldn't, skip that just because I wanted to go to Glasgow. So I couldn't go up with my dad in the van. I couldn't drive up. So I needed to go on the big train because I'd get there later, and my dad wasn't going to wait 5-6 hours for me to finish my school. So I needed to get the big train. So I got the tickets were all booked, and then the Euston, I got to Euston, and I was going to get an Avanti West Coast to Glasgow. Something like 5 hours in total. It wasn't too bad. It was going to get me there, or get me to Glasgow at about 10 o'clock. I think 10 o'clock. Or 10 o'clock at night, that is, and then leave at 4 o'clock, something like that. So I got to Euston. Everything was fine up to that point. I got myself some snacks for the journey, and the gate opened, and I was on platform whatever. It doesn't really matter what platform I was on. And then I got on the train. I got into my seat. And then, just as the train was about to leave, this couple came up to me, and the guy said, "Excuse me, mate, this is our seat." And he showed me his ticket, and it was in fact his seat. And I made sure that I was sitting in the correct seat, so then I checked my ticket, and it turns out that my seat had only been booked from a certain station further along the line. So this guy had booked this seat from Euston to somewhere on the west coast, and I had the seat later on in the journey. So basically, I didn't have a seat for about 3 hours. I wasn't standing up or anything, but it was a pretty busy train, so I had to move myself and go sit somewhere else, which was really, really quite frustrating because I was sitting in one of the only positions that has a like plug socket, right? This is a train that only has plug sockets in the little 4-seat table that you get. And I wanted to edit a video while I was, on the train. I wanted to edit a video. I wanted to do some schoolwork as well. So I got kicked out of my plug socket seat, right? And then I had to go sit somewhere else. And I couldn't use my laptop because my laptop is a piece of crap that basically doesn't run 5 minutes without being charged. And it needs to be like charged constantly or else it instantly runs out of battery. So I'm now kicked out of my seat and sitting next to some random woman for about 2 hours, almost 3 hours. And then I see that the couple have got off and I'm like, brilliant, that is perfect. And then I go sit in my seat, my allocated seat, and this time I'm doing it correctly. No one else for the rest of the journey comes and claims this as their seat. But as the couple get off, there is a group of about my age, 3 girls get on the train, and they've just come from this crazy weekend or week in Liverpool, something like that. And they've been to this concert, and they come and sit on the 3 other chairs surrounding me. So I'm sitting in the corner next to the window of this 4-seat table, and then 3 people just completely surround me. I will not be able to get up without having to ask these people to move, and I am horrible at social situations, right? So I'm basically sat there, stuck for about, not stuck, but I'm sat there surrounded by these 3 girls. And then the next station, after about maybe half an hour, the next station, this is where one of the main characters of the story comes in, right? This is where David comes into play. And I'm going to say his name because I don't think there's someone watching this video or listening to this that is going to, track down David. So I'm going to use his real name. Now, David was a very Scottish man, and he was with his wife and his best friend and his best friend's wife, and it was the 4 of them, and they sat in basically 2 rows basically next to us, next to the 4-seat table, and it wasn't another 4-seat table because of the way these trains are arranged. The way these trains are arranged, there's 2 rows of chairs, 2 rows of 2, right, next to the 4-seat table. And then David gets on, and he's very clearly had a bit to drink, right? He's very clearly had a bit to drink, and he's got some more beer with him, and he's quite loud. He's quite a loud man, David is. And he starts chatting to these girls, and they're really friendly, right? David is really a lovely man, but he's a very loud, lovely man. And he's talking to these girls, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, I had a great time. I was out partying all night." And he was 40, right? This is a 40, 50-year-old Scottish man, and he's very loud. And then he's showing these girls a video of him or his mate throwing up in a bush, and he's laughing quite loud because it's he watches this video. It's quite a funny moment for him. For me, editing my video, I can still hear him with my really pretty good sound. Sound suppression headphones, and I can still very clearly hear him. Yeah. And then it gets to the point where I need to piss, right? I've drank my drink. I've had all of my water in my water bottle, and my water bottle is quite large, so that is yeah, that's a problem. So I really need to piss, and I don't particularly feel like talking to people at this point in time. You know, I haven't spoken to anyone for maybe 5 hours at this point. So I just wait for these girls to get off the train. They say they're going to Preston or Carlisle. No, it was Carlisle. Yeah. So they get off at Carlisle, and that's like an hour of me just kind of needing to piss. So then they get off, and David is still there because he's going all the way home. He's going to Glasgow, which is the same place I'm going. So I'm stuck with David for the remainder of the journey. And Carlisle is the last stop before Glasgow. So there's like an hour, maybe 2 hours in between Carlisle and Glasgow Central. So then David and his mate, then I go off to the toilet. I make sure to sort of leave my stuff so that no one really steals it. Or not leave my stuff, but I just like sort of pack everything away so that no one looks at my laptop or just tries to steal it, that sort of thing. And when I get back, and David and his mate are sitting in the 2 chairs opposite me, right in the table. And this is the point where I realise I need to speak to this man. Beforehand, he has, do you know what, to be fair, he has, like, been saying hello to me throughout the whole thing. He's very drunk, and I've been somewhat receptive, but I've had my headphones on most of the time, and he's, I can't remember what he said, or what he had, like, this nickname for me while he was talking to the girls. He said, is, wee man, or, like, big man, something like that. That sort of like kind of funny nickname. So I have like interacted with this man. I've interacted with David before. So then I say to him, would you like me to move? Because there's 4 of them. There's 4 of them in the group. And I was like, do you want me to move so all 4 of you can sit here? And he was like, really? And this is my act of kindness, right? I'm like, yeah, no problem. I don't mind moving, because at this point the train is empty, right? There's basically no one on this train, or it's not as full as it was coming out of Euston. So, and no one else is going to get on the train between now and like getting to Glasgow. So I can pretty safely go and just sit in a random seat that's empty. So I do this. I get out of my seat, and then it's at this point that David's wife notices my chemistry book that I've got with me, right? I've got my chemistry A-level book with me, and then she starts talking about what I want to do with my life, and I'm kind of forced to, because I'm still talking to her, and I don't want to just stand up while I'm doing this. The train is in motion. So I sit in the 2 rows of 2 seats next to the table of 4. So I sit there, and she's still talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go to university next year, and then I start actually talking to these people. I'm not completely socially inept, guys. So yeah, I'm talking to her, and then she says like, oh, my son's doing chemistry at university, and I'm like, nice, yeah, that's quite cool. And eventually it gets to the point where she's like, I'm gonna leave you alone now. And I'm like, in my brain I'm kind of like, thank God, but also at the same time, she's a lovely person. She's just talked to me for about 15 minutes about what I want to do with my life. A complete stranger, basically, to her. So then I eventually get up and I go find a little spot for me to be for the rest of the time. Problem is there's no like 4 seater table that's empty. So I just give up on the idea of finishing editing my video and just sit in a random seat and watch YouTube on my phone for the rest of the time. And I don't really see David for the remainder of the journey until right up at the end, where I am in Glasgow Central and the train has stopped just outside Glasgow. Oh, and there, we did this very strange journey that added about 20 minutes onto our time. So basically, instead of going direct to Glasgow, we went east towards Edinburgh and then took some track west back to Glasgow, which was quite strange. But that's what happened. So then, once we were at Glasgow, we were like, I don't know, maybe a mile outside of Glasgow. We stopped on the track, and we were there for about half an hour, right? We were there, maybe not half an hour, but 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes. And everyone was sort of like packing up, getting ready to get off the train, and then the train stops, and we're like, oh, great, it's here. But it's not in the station. We're outside of Glasgow, and we're there for 20 minutes. So it's just kind of people half sitting down, half standing up with their luggage ready to go. And at that point, David spots me again, and he's like, oh, how are you? And I was like, yeah, not too bad. Nothing much has changed within that hour that you haven't spoken to me. and he asked for my name. Eventually, he asks for my name, and he goes, what's your name? And I go, oh, it's Ben. And he's, how old are you, Ben? And I go, I'm 18. And this is like, I'm recently 18, so I almost said 17, but I said, yeah, I'm 18. And he's like, really? Apparently, I looked like a 15-year-old to him. I don't think I look like a 15-year-old. Maybe it's because I'm a bit short, but I was about the same height as David, so I don't know why he would think that. But I don't know what it was. He just thought I was 15. I have no idea why. But yeah, no, we're waiting outside of Glasgow, and eventually, after 20 minutes, the train starts to move again. And I get off the train after about 6 hours of, like, leaving Euston. More than 6 hours. No, it was about 6 hours, because the train left at 4:30, and I got to Glasgow Central at about 10:30. So yeah, 6 hours. And I thought, oh Jesus, that was such a long journey. I never want to go on another big train again. And the next week, I'm going to Cornwall. And my car is not long for this world. My family car is, well, it was made and bought in 2009. So it is very old and not working as well as it used to. It still holds up, but not for a long journey. We always used to drive down to Cornwall, but not this time. With this, we were only going for a few days, and we thought, you know what? Let's just take the train. We've never taken the train down to Cornwall before, and it's only about one interchange, because it's Paddington all the way down towards Penzance, and you get off one station before Penzance and take the little branch line all the way to St Ives. It's pretty simple to get there. So that's what we do. We get to Paddington, we get on the train, or we're waiting for the train for about, I don't know, half an hour, but we get there a bit early, so it's fine. And then at Paddington, it turns out that the wrong train has arrived. The wrong stock. They wanted a big train because it's quite a big, journey all the way down to Penzance. But something went wrong, and instead of going to Penzance, we're now going to Plymouth. And then having to change at Plymouth. And a much shorter train than the original one that was supposed to go to Penzance has arrived in the station. And that's the train that we're going to. This means that the seats, once again, the seats that I was supposed to be in are not applicable anymore. It's first come, first serve. On one of the busiest trains out of Paddington, all the way down to Plymouth. But I get a seat, and luckily this train, this big train, has plug sockets underneath the chair. So I don't have to worry about sitting in a table of 4, because I can edit my video while sitting in a little two-seat row. Problem is I'm going backwards, and I don't mind going backwards on trains, but it can get a little disorientating after about 7 hours of being on that train. It wasn't 7 hours. No, it wasn't. It was about 4 hours. No, it wasn't. Because then later in the journey... Oh god, I'm all over the place. Because then later in the journey, once we got past... Oh, I don't know. Exeter, maybe? I've got no idea. No, it was before Exeter. It was like somewhere in the like southwest of England, but not as far as Exeter. But we stopped, and it was this station called Pewsey. This little tiny like rural station called Pewsey. And apparently, a tree had fallen on the tracks. Now, we don't know where this tree was, but there was a big backlog of Great Western Railway trains, like, on that track. This included, like, all the local services, the shuttle services, the big trains down to Penzance, the slightly smaller trains to, like, Plymouth. All of those were in a backlog. So we were waiting at this little station, Pewsey, for roughly an hour. Okay, it wasn't an hour, but it was a long time. It was a long, long time. And eventually, this train started moving again, and it's like, yay! Literally everyone on the train cheered because we were waiting for so long. And then once we got to Plymouth, the train we were supposed to get at Plymouth had left because we were waiting for so long. The train we were supposed to get, the connecting train, left like half an hour ago because we got held up for so long. So we now no longer have a connecting train down to Penzance, or the station before Penzance, which is St. Erth, for the purposes of this video. So yeah, we now no longer have a train, so we're going to have to be waiting an unknown amount of time. So I'm like, I'm going to go to the toilet, because I didn't really want to go to the train toilets. My experience on the Avanti West Coast train to Glasgow in the toilet was not a fantastic one, so I thought I'll just wait until we get to Plymouth. And then I kind of regretted that once, we got held up for about half an hour, but it was fine. I got to the toilet, and it turns out the train that was in the platform where I was, like, the toilet was on a platform, and the train on that platform was the one that, for whatever reason, suddenly decided, we're going to Penzance. I didn't know this, so I had to, I got out, and then I had to rush onto the train, and then I had to, yeah, I had to rush onto the train, basically, and I had to find my family, who were on the train already, without me. But at that point, it was okay, because there were less people on this train, because, people had connected to other stations, people had gone elsewhere. So at Plymouth, there were less people on the train, and, at that point, it was pretty much fine. This was a faster service than we were initially supposed to get, so it was like one that skipped a few stations it was originally supposed to go to. Luckily, it still went to St. Earth, so that was all good. We didn't have to worry about that. This was the train that we needed, or a train that took us to where we wanted to go. And then it turns out that the train on the tracks that we'd been stopped at Pewsey Station, miles and miles away from where we were, was actually in Cornwall. The train on the track, or the tree on the tracks, was in Cornwall, so far down, unbelievably far down. We got stopped all the way back there, and the tree was like in Cornwall. That is so mad. The tree was in Cornwall, and we got stopped all the way back, way before Plymouth, and the tree was in Cornwall. Incredible. Actually, just incredible. Oh my god. So yeah, that was fun. And then eventually we get to Cornwall. And it's fine. It's all good. And then we get the train home. And the train home was great. There were no problems whatsoever. And I'm not saying that like there were no problems whatsoever, and then turns out there were millions of problems. No. On the way back, everything went great. So, yeah, that was my journey. That was my big train journeys, and this is why I kind of don't like big trains. Maybe I need more big train experiences, but we'll see, you know? I need to get a big train to my university next year. And I will have many more big train experiences. So we will see. Or I will see, and maybe I'll speak about it briefly. But I don't think I'm going to make another FM podcast dedicated to big trains. I'm back, by the way, guys. The FMPod is back. I think it's going to go away also after this video. I don't know. This is the most inconsistent upload schedule in the world, and I just wanted to get this off my chest because I've been thinking about this for a few weeks since I got on that Glasgow train, and I was like, I gotta talk about this somehow. And I thought, you know what, let's make a FMPod episode based on big trains after my second awful experience in basically the span of a week. It was the span of a week. It was the span of a week. I had two awful big train experiences. Well, actually, the Glasgow one wasn't awful. It was just, you know, kind of annoying, and also David was there. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed this FM pod. If you did, that's great. And I will see you whenever I decide to make another one. Bye!